Welcome to another Every Unsolved Mystery Begins with a Question. But before we ask what happened to Amy Lynn Bradley, we first need to understand who she was. Because behind every headline, every investigation, and every unanswered question, there was a real person with dreams, ambitions, and a family who loved her. Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12, 1974, in Virginia, United States. She grew up in a close-knit family alongside her younger brother, Brad. Those who knew Amy described her as outgoing, independent, and adventurous. She loved sports, enjoyed spending time outdoors, and had a vibrant personality that naturally drew people toward her. Unlike someone who sought isolation, Amy was deeply connected to her family and friends. She had recently graduated from college with a degree in physical education and was excited about the future that lay ahead. Her family saw her as determined, responsible, and full of life. In March of 1998, the Bradley family decided to celebrate Amy's graduation with a Caribbean cruise aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas. It was supposed to be a week of relaxation, sunshine, and unforgettable memories, a chance to enjoy time together before life returned to its normal pace. The cruise ship was a floating city. Thousands of passengers filled its restaurants, theaters, swimming pools, lounges, and decks. Every evening, live music echoed through the ship as families laughed, danced, and admired the endless Caribbean horizon. For Amy, it seemed like the perfect vacation. Family photographs taken during those first days captured genuine smiles and carefree moments. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing suggested that this ordinary holiday would soon become one of the most famous unsolved disappearances in modern history. Looking back today, those photographs have become more than vacation memories. They are among the last confirmed images of Amy Lynn Bradley before she vanished. At that moment, no one aboard the ship, not her family, not the crew, not the thousands of passengers surrounding her, could have imagined that within hours, Amy would disappear without a trace. No one knew they were witnessing the final chapter of an ordinary vacation. And the beginning of an extraordinary mystery. Every mystery has a moment. A single point in time where everything changes. For Amy Lynn Bradley, that moment began on the evening of March 23, 1998. The Rhapsody of the Seas was sailing through the Caribbean, making its way toward the island of Curaçao. The atmosphere on board was exactly what passengers had dreamed of when they booked the cruise. Music drifted through the ship's lounges. The casino buzzed with activity. Restaurants were filled with laughter. On the open decks, passengers gathered beneath a sky crowded with stars, enjoying the warm Caribbean breeze. To everyone around them, it was just another unforgettable night at sea. Amy spent the evening with her younger brother, Brad. Like many passengers, they visited one of the ship's nightclubs, where music played late into the night. They danced, talked with other passengers, and enjoyed the lively atmosphere. According to those closest to her, Amy appeared relaxed and in good spirits. Nothing about her behavior suggested that she intended to disappear or that she was in distress. As the hours passed, the nightclub gradually emptied. Shortly after 3 a.m., Amy and Brad decided it was time to return to their cabin. Together, they walked through the quiet corridors of the ship, eventually reaching the room they shared with their parents. The Bradley family exchanged a few final words before settling in for the night. For them, it was simply the end of another vacation day. But as investigators would later discover, those ordinary moments would become critically important. Sometime after returning to the cabin, Amy stepped out onto the private balcony. The Caribbean Sea stretched endlessly into the darkness. The only sounds were the gentle rhythm of the waves and the steady hum of the ship's engines cutting through the water. Her father, Ron Bradley, later recalled waking briefly during the early morning hours. He remembered seeing Amy sitting quietly on the balcony. Everything appeared normal. Believing his daughter was simply enjoying the peaceful night air, he went back to sleep. It would be the last confirmed time a member of her family saw Amy. No screams. No sounds of panic. No sign of a struggle. Just the quiet darkness of the Caribbean night. When Ron opened his eyes again a short time later, the balcony was empty. Amy was gone. And with her disappearance, the mystery truly began. The first light of dawn slowly spread across the Caribbean Sea. For most of the passengers aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas, it was the beginning of another beautiful vacation day. Within a few hours, the ship would arrive in the port of Curaçao, where thousands of travelers planned to spend the day exploring the island. Inside cabin 8562, however, something was already wrong. At approximately 5:30 a.m., Ron Bradley woke up once again. The first thing he noticed was that Amy was no longer sitting on the balcony. At first, he wasn't alarmed. It seemed entirely possible that she had gone for an early morning walk around the ship, stopped for a cup of coffee, or decided to watch the sunrise from one of the upper decks. After all, Amy was an early riser and enjoyed quiet moments. But as the minutes passed, that simple explanation became harder to believe. Ron checked the balcony. It was empty. He looked around the cabin. Amy's shoes were still there. Most of her personal belongings had been left behind. Her luggage remained untouched. There was no indication that she had packed anything or planned to leave the ship. Concern quickly turned into urgency. Ron began searching nearby decks, scanning the corridors, restaurants, and observation areas where Amy might have gone. Each passing minute increased the family's anxiety. No one had seen her. No one remembered speaking with her. No one could explain where she had gone. The Bradley family immediately alerted the ship's crew and requested that passengers be prevented from leaving once the vessel reached Curaçao. According to the family, they believed there was still time to search every corner of the ship before anyone disembarked. But events unfolded quickly. As the ship docked that morning, thousands of passengers began leaving for the island. By the time a more extensive search was underway, countless people had already stepped onto shore. Whether Amy had disappeared somewhere aboard the ship, or whether she had somehow left the vessel before anyone realized she was missing, was now one of the central questions investigators would face. Every passing hour made the search more difficult. Every departing passenger widened the mystery. And every unanswered question pushed Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance further beyond explanation. The vacation had ended. The investigation had just begun. When the Bradley family realized Amy was nowhere to be found, every minute became critical. Cruise ships are often compared to floating cities. With multiple passenger decks, restaurants, lounges, theaters, stairwells, crew-only areas, and hundreds of cabins, locating one person can be an enormous challenge, even under the best circumstances. As concern grew, the ship's crew began searching the vessel. Public areas were checked. Hallways were walked repeatedly. Crew members questioned employees who had been working through the night. But the search produced a troubling result. There was no confirmed sign of Amy Lynn Bradley anywhere on board. Investigators later focused on one question above all others. How could someone disappear from a cruise ship carrying thousands of passengers without leaving behind a clear trail? The ship had security personnel. Crew members worked around the clock. Passengers were constantly moving through public spaces. Yet no one came forward with a verified account explaining exactly when or how Amy disappeared. Adding to the mystery, there was no confirmed physical evidence pointing investigators toward a single explanation. No definitive signs of a struggle were publicly reported. No confirmed surveillance footage captured Amy's final movements. No verified eyewitness described seeing her leave the ship. As hours turned into days, authorities from multiple jurisdictions became involved. The cruise line, local officials, and later the Federal Bureau of Investigation all examined different aspects of the case. Despite those efforts, the investigation quickly faced a difficult reality. Without a confirmed timeline, without physical evidence, and without a reliable witness to the moment Amy disappeared, Investigators were forced to reconstruct the case from fragments. Every interview, every memory, every small detail suddenly mattered. Some passengers recalled seeing Amy during the previous evening. Others believed they may have noticed someone matching her description later that night. But as investigators know all too well, human memory can become uncertain, especially after a shocking event. Each new statement added another possibility. But none provided the answer everyone was searching for. Instead of narrowing the mystery, the investigation seemed to make it even more complicated. And then, reports began to emerge that would take the case in an entirely new direction. Some claimed Amy hadn't disappeared at sea at all. Some believed she had been seen after the ship reached port. These reports would become some of the most debated, and controversial, parts of the entire investigation. But were they genuine leads? Or simply cases of mistaken identity? That question remains unanswered to this day. As days turned into weeks, the search for Amy Lynn Bradley expanded far beyond the cruise ship. Investigators followed every lead they received, no matter how small. Phone calls poured in. Emails arrived from strangers. Around the Caribbean, people began reporting that they had seen a young woman who looked remarkably like Amy. Most of these reports were quickly investigated. Most were ruled out. But a few would attract serious attention, and keep the case alive for decades. One of the earliest reports came from a Canadian tourist who claimed he had seen a woman matching Amy's description on a beach in Curaçao shortly after the cruise arrived. According to his account, the woman appeared distressed and was accompanied by two unidentified men. Investigators documented the statement. However, no independent evidence could confirm that the woman was actually Amy. Years later, another report emerged from a member of the U.S. Navy, who said he met a woman in a public place in Curaçao who identified herself as Amy Bradley. According to his account, she appeared frightened and quietly asked him for help, saying she was being prevented from leaving. The sailor later reported the encounter after recognizing Amy's story in the news. Investigators examined the claim. But once again, there was no definitive evidence that could verify the encounter had actually taken place as described. Then came perhaps the most widely discussed development in the entire case. In the early 2000s, images surfaced online that some believed resembled Amy. The photographs sparked renewed public interest and intense debate. Family members felt the resemblance was striking. Investigators reviewed the material carefully. Yet despite years of analysis, no conclusive proof ever established that the person in those images was Amy Lynn Bradley. This pattern repeated itself over and over again. A promising lead. A hopeful possibility. An intensive investigation. And ultimately, no definitive answers. For Amy's family, each reported sighting carried two emotions at once: hope and heartbreak. Every phone call offered the possibility that Amy might still be alive. But every unconfirmed lead also meant living through the same uncertainty again and again. More than 25 years after Amy disappeared, none of the reported sightings have been conclusively verified. Some investigators believe one of them could hold the key to the mystery. Others believe they were cases of mistaken identity, influenced by widespread media coverage. The truth remains unknown. And with every unanswered lead, the mystery only grew deeper. More than 2 decades have passed since Amy Lynn Bradley disappeared. Despite thousands of hours of investigation, countless interviews, and international media coverage, no single explanation has ever been proven. With so little confirmed evidence, investigators have been forced to consider several possibilities. Each theory attempts to answer the same question. What happened to Amy Lynn Bradley on the morning of March 24, 1998? The first theory is the simplest: that Amy accidentally went overboard. Supporters of this theory argue that she was last known to be sitting alone on the cabin balcony during the early hours of the morning. A single misstep, an unexpected loss of balance, or another accident could explain why she was never seen again. However, there are significant questions. The sea was relatively calm. No verified witness reported hearing a scream or seeing anyone fall. And despite search efforts, no conclusive evidence has ever confirmed that Amy entered the water. The second theory suggests that Amy chose to leave voluntarily. Investigators considered this possibility, as they do in nearly every missing person case. But those closest to Amy strongly rejected the idea. She left behind her passport, most of her belongings, and the plans she had made for the future. Family and friends consistently described her as someone who was excited about her life. Not someone preparing to disappear. As a result, many investigators have viewed this explanation with skepticism. The third, and perhaps the most debated, theory is that Amy became the victim of a crime. Because no one can account for her final movements, some investigators have considered the possibility that she encountered someone aboard the ship or after arriving in port. Over the years, this theory has often been linked to the unconfirmed sightings reported in Curaçao. However, it is important to emphasize one fact. No publicly available evidence has conclusively proven that Amy was abducted. No suspect has ever been charged. No criminal case has established what happened. The available evidence simply does not allow investigators to reach a definitive conclusion. And that is what makes this case so extraordinary. Every theory explains part of the mystery. But none explain all of it. Every possibility leaves important questions unanswered. How did Amy disappear without a confirmed witness? Why has no definitive physical evidence ever been found? And after all these years, why has no one been able to answer the one question that matters most? What really happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not the theories themselves, but the silence surrounding the truth. As the years passed, the headlines slowly faded. New stories replaced old ones. The cruise ship continued sailing. Passengers came and went. Life moved forward for almost everyone. But for the Bradley family, time seemed to stand still. Every birthday, every holiday, every family gathering served as another painful reminder that one chair remained empty. Unlike many families of missing persons, they were never given the certainty of knowing what happened. There was no confirmed crime scene. No definitive evidence. No final goodbye. Only questions. Over the years, Amy's family has continued to work with investigators, respond to reported sightings, and keep her story alive through media interviews and public appeals. Their hope has never completely disappeared. Neither has their determination to find answers. Meanwhile, investigators have continued to encourage anyone with credible information to come forward. Although advancements in forensic science, DNA analysis, and international cooperation have helped solve many cold cases around the world, Amy Lynn Bradley's disappearance remains one of the rare cases where the central mystery has resisted every attempt at resolution. Even today, investigators cannot state with certainty whether Amy disappeared aboard the ship, whether she entered the sea, or whether she somehow left the vessel alive. Each possibility remains unproven. That uncertainty has made this case one of the most discussed cruise ship disappearances in modern history. For some people, it's a mystery of circumstance. For others, it's a mystery of missed opportunities. But for Amy's family, it has always been something much more personal. It is the story of a daughter, a sister, and a loved one who never came home. And perhaps that is why this case continues to capture the world's attention. Not because of dramatic theories, but because of one simple, heartbreaking truth. Someone vanished. And despite decades of searching, no one knows exactly why. On the morning of March 24, 1998, Amy Lynn Bradley disappeared. That single fact has never been disputed. Everything else remains a mystery. More than 2 decades later, investigators still cannot say with certainty what happened during those final moments aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas. Did Amy accidentally fall into the sea? Did she encounter someone on board? Did she somehow leave the ship alive? Each possibility has been examined. Each has been debated. Yet none has ever been proven. Cases like Amy's remind us that even in the modern world, surrounded by technology, investigators, and thousands of witnesses, some mysteries remain beyond explanation. Sometimes, the most haunting cases are not the ones with shocking answers. They're the ones with no answers at all. For the Bradley family, this has never been about theories or headlines. It has always been about finding the truth. A truth that has remained just out of reach for more than 25 years. Today, Amy Lynn Bradley is still officially listed as a missing person. Law enforcement agencies continue to encourage anyone with credible information to come forward. Because even the smallest detail could one day change everything. Until that day arrives, the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the most enduring unsolved mysteries in modern history. A story that began with an ordinary family vacation and ended with a question that still echoes across the Caribbean Sea. What really happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? Only one person may know the complete answer. And if that answer still exists, it has yet to be found. Thank you for watching this episode of our documentary series. If you enjoy well-researched documentaries about history's greatest mysteries, unexplained disappearances, and true events, consider subscribing and joining us for the next investigation. Until next time, stay curious. More than 28 years have passed since Amy Lynn Bradley vanished without a trace. Despite countless investigations, reported sightings, and years of searching, no one has been able to answer the question that has haunted this case from the very beginning. What really happened to Amy Lynn Bradley? Did she accidentally fall overboard? Did she become the victim of a crime? Or is there another explanation that has never been discovered? To this day, there is no definitive answer. Only unanswered questions. And a family that has never stopped searching for the truth. Perhaps one day, new evidence will finally reveal what happened aboard that cruise ship in the early hours of March 24, 1998. But until that day comes, the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the world's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Thank you for watching another episode of our documentary series. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories, unsolved mysteries, and historical investigations. Until next time, stay curious. Stay informed.